Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, July 18th, 2022, and today we're going to be talking about what you can tell from the title of this video: Republicans are abandoning Ron DeSantis. Now, we have known for the past couple of weeks that Ron DeSantis is performing quite poorly in the national polling data for the GOP nomination. And with this has come a lot of uncertainty about his candidacy, about his electability, about his potential dethroning of President Trump as the frontrunner on the GOP side. Now, for the first time since before he even announced his presidential campaign, Ron DeSantis has officially dipped below 20% nationwide on average, according to Real Clear Politics. The reason this is significant is because it isn't alongside many dips for any other candidates in these races, but rather a plateau for everybody but Ron DeSantis, who seems to have lost support nationwide. And the fact is, Ron DeSantis was largely expected by many political pundits to receive an electoral bump following his announcement. After all, he polled within 10 points of Donald Trump before he even entered himself in the race. Obviously, what we have seen is that the more that voters see Ron DeSantis, the less they like him, and as a result, his numbers have begun to dwindle. Now, I won't pretend that Ron DeSantis alone is dragging himself down, but he's largely to blame for it. But we cannot deny the heavy influence and impact that Donald Trump's candidacy has had on his campaign. Donald Trump took one of the most beloved Republican governors across the country and turned him into an enemy of the GOP, an enemy of the Trump campaign that makes Ron DeSantis no longer as electable, no longer as likable for many GOP contenders across the GOP voters across the United States. Now, with Ron DeSantis at 19.7%, you start to question, where does he go from here? He has been in the campaign for just over a month now, and yet he seems to be falling. Not just here, but across the United States. What I've decided to do here is also highlight all of the state polls that have been done over the past month, allowing you to see where Donald Trump stands in states, for example, such as California or New Hampshire. These are states that I think are quite important to think about because, number one, California is huge, New Hampshire is also early. They are dictator states that will determine the rest of the primary and how it goes. And the fact is, Donald Trump leads, quite literally, everywhere. The difference between the primary here and the one in 2016 is that in 2016, Donald Trump didn't win every single state. Though he led nationwide throughout practically the entirety of the primary season, he did not win every single state, and we know that. You can see on the GOP delegate count that there were many states, for example, that Ted Cruz won, Wisconsin being one of them, Utah, another state that Ted Cruz won. And earlier on in the primary contest, you saw Ted Cruz even won Iowa despite Donald Trump leading nationally. Then went on to win Alaska. Then you went on to see Marco Rubio win Minnesota, Cruz win Tennessee, Cruz win Texas, the second largest prize on the GOP side. What I'm telling you this for is to say that although Donald Trump did in fact lead nationwide all the way back in 2016, it didn't translate to direct victories in every single state. Unfortunately, this time around, it does. Donald Trump's lead nationwide, although larger than it is in some of these states, does translate to dominating victories across these battleground competitive primaries. For instance, California has Trump up 26. New Hampshire has Trump up 24. Florida has Trump up 20. This is an important one because it's Ron DeSantis' home state. You know who also was from the state of Florida in 2016? Senator Marco Rubio, who was serving as a senator at that time, who went on to the general election to outperform Donald Trump by 8 points, but lost the primary to winner-take-all state, absolutely demolished Marco Rubio's chances at the presidency. He dropped out shortly after. Iowa has Trump up 23. Ohio has Trump up 44. Nevada has Trump up 30. Pennsylvania has Trump up 24. Wisconsin has Trump up by 1. The closest state, but still a lead for President Trump. The point is here that you see every single statewide poll that has been taken in the past month shows Donald Trump with a double-digit lead with the exception of Wisconsin, and not just a small double-digit lead. The narrowest being 20 points, the largest being 44. That is a mandate for Donald Trump. That is electability at play. And it shows that Ron DeSantis is someone who is long seen as this potential dethroner of President Trump is no longer in the running in the way that we otherwise might have thought. Now, you know this, but it isn't just me saying this. Confidence in Ron DeSantis has gone down dramatically. In a new memo exclusively received by NBC News, they acquired this document, which you can see. Ron DeSantis' campaign assures the donors here that he is going for the long game. that it isn't a guarantee that he wins the first few rounds, the first few competitive primaries, but they're focusing a lot of their efforts on Super Tuesday, a 14-state primary evening for the GOP nomination that will likely determine and make or break Ron DeSantis' campaign and future over the next coming months. Now, Ron DeSantis' campaign memo does show a bit of desperation, in the sense that he's reassuring donors that I'm still in this race, I'm still electable, and I'm still going to defeat Donald Trump. Now, some of his biggest donors, including the Murdoch family, which is well known for its funding of the Republican Party, has started to sour on Ron DeSantis. Rolling Stone broke this story, but many others picking it up because it's interesting to see why they backed him in the first place, considering where he is right now. And it makes sense. Months ago, we were talking about how Ron DeSantis was the single most dangerous threat to the Democratic Party, and now I no longer believe that is true. It says here that the Murdoch family, is in favor of Ron DeSantis, largely due to a conviction that Ron DeSantis would be, quite frankly, more electable, less chaotic, and an evolution from Donald Trump. But in recent weeks, it says the family has grown increasingly displeased with the DeSantis campaign's perceived stumbles, lackluster polling, and inability to swiftly dethrone Trump. The way Ron DeSantis has launched his campaign, he was largely expected by members of his own campaign to overthrow Donald Trump immediately. I mean, when Ron DeSantis was outside of the campaign for a while, he was polling neck and neck with Donald Trump. You can see here in the January 2023 polls and the February 2023 polls, Ron DeSantis at different points in time was within 3 to 4 points of Donald Trump. Today, he stands being down by roughly 30 points. To go from being down just 3 to 4 points to being down by 30 points shows a dramatic decrease in support for your campaign. It does seem as if voters liked the idea of a challenger to Trump more than they actually liked the actual challenger to Trump. And again, the Murdoch family is only the beginning. I mean, we have seen, a continuous story over the past couple of weeks, but more recently this week, we're seeing questions about Fox News, especially with the departure of the Murdoch family being the primary supporters for Ron DeSantis. As we will see over the next coming weeks, they will likely start to stop funneling tens of millions of dollars in his campaign or, doing so by proxy. Fox News, as one of the main conservative outlets, has started to become way more pro-Donald Trump. Not to say that they always haven't been, but for a period of time, they were very much pro-Ron DeSantis. I watch Fox News relatively often. I love watching the mainstream media because it tells me how each sort of narrative is being built, especially amongst liberal audiences, neutral audiences, conservative audiences, and Fox News, for a long time, always propped up America's governor. That's how they referred to Ron DeSantis, and yet now he seems to be faltering. They still have him on the air, but they aren't propping him up as much as they used to be. They are very much, in many ways, propping up Donald Trump. Now, we can also see here that there are questions about why Republicans can't quit Donald Trump. Questions about why can't they give up the former president who lost the 2020 election? And sure, it's a fair point, but it wouldn't be happening unless there was a valid reason to believe that Ron DeSantis was unable to defeat him. Now, it also continues to get worse in the betting markets. You can also see here that there have been a number of shifts away from him, especially recently. Ron DeSantis, who at one point in time, you can see here, this is a video of mine from 5 months ago. Keep in mind, 5 months ago, so not that much of a difference. Less than half a year ago, Ron DeSantis was beating Donald Trump, and Donald Trump had already announced at this point. Donald Trump was already announced at this point, and yet Ron DeSantis was the leader in this poll, was the leader in the predicted betting market odds. And today he stands at just 18 cents for a yes share, while Donald Trump is at 60. You take this as percentages, 60% for Trump, 18% for Ron DeSantis, what was 40 to 31 in DeSantis' favor. It is crazy. It is incomprehensible to think about how a campaign has collapsed so much that Republicans are flocking away from him and towards other people. This dip in the polls is only the beginning. And as I said, every single metric is on my side with this, including the race to the White House prediction map that now shows Ron DeSantis losing the state of Florida in a never consolidated field and in a head-to-head matchup. Before, just a few days ago, Ron DeSantis was winning in this race. But new national data, new fundraising data, overall just a general understanding of the race has changed the perception of this model that makes Ron DeSantis the loser in his home state. The fact is, if the primary was held today, assuming these numbers are correct, and as all of the polls have indicated, they probably are, Ron DeSantis would win 3 states, and Donald Trump would win 47. In terms of overall delegate count, Donald Trump in a head-to-head matchup would be at 2,115 to Ron DeSantis' 341. In a never consolidated field, Ron DeSantis would be at just 300 delegates, and Donald Trump would be at 2,074. This race isn't even as competitive as it was in 2016. Ron DeSantis might perform worse than Ted Cruz, potentially even worse than Marco Rubio or John Kasich. It's an embarrassment for a candidate who was once hailed as this savior for the GOP, who was going to revitalize support for the Republican Party as America's governor and go on to the general election and win so easily. But he can't even get to that point to even win in the first place. These new dips in numbers are ones that we definitely could have expected for a while. It's ones that were consistent with the trend line over the past couple of weeks. And I have been very, very particular to make a point of noting that Ron DeSantis is performing quite poorly, because it's important to think about. It's important to note because Ron DeSantis, even on my channel, was propped up as this ever-electable, strong, enthusiastic Republican who was everything Donald Trump was on the good side, nothing on the bad side, and we are slowly starting to realize that he may even be worse. I don't know about worse for the general election, but certainly worse for the Republican primary. That's why voters are flocking away from him, as are donors, as are betting odds, as are numbers, as are polls. I mean, everywhere you look, Ron DeSantis is at a worse point than where he was the day he started this campaign. That is a problem. And if Ron DeSantis can't win a single state in the early nomination, you will see exactly what happened to Donald Trump happen in 2024. For instance, right around the time of the Iowa caucuses in 2016, Donald Trump dominated, but not by an overwhelming amount. He was at less than a third of the national vote. But then came victory after victory. Super Tuesday hit. Marco Rubio with 19% nationwide dropped out after losing his home state of Florida, and Donald Trump surged. He surged and surged and surged. By the time we hit May, everybody else dropped out, but Donald Trump still only won with 46.5% of the average here and roughly about 44% of the vote by the end of the nomination contest. He will start out with more than that. That is a problem for the GOP if they want to dethrone him. Because this isn't just like 2016. We've been drawing this comparison for quite some time now. It's better for Donald Trump. I thought things couldn't get better than his historic national victory in the 2016 Republican primary, going from someone who was polling at just single digits when he first announced his campaign to becoming the president of the United States and winning in this primary as one of the most impressive candidates. And I don't say this to applaud him. I don't say this to, go against him. I say this objectively speaking. Donald Trump's campaign was historic in many ways. It rewrote our political understanding. It rewrote the way politics has been viewed. It rewrote the way that people handle political situations. I mean, our own understanding as voters, our own understanding as analysis, analytics, our own understanding as analysts. I don't know why I said analytics. Analysts, our own understanding as candidates. I mean, what we see here is that what Donald Trump did in 2016 was very much on track to be replicated, but now it's going to be even better. And Ron DeSantis, who may have been hailed once as this comeback kid, this person who could dethrone a former president, who could challenge the person who has dominated the party for the past 8 years. He was supposed to be the Hail Mary. He was supposed to be the candidate that could break this cycle of Trump, DeSantis. That's how it was supposed to go. And now it's going to be Trump yet again. It is so incredibly fascinating, but it is, in many ways, expected. Because Donald Trump's grip on the GOP cannot be understated. His impact, his influence cannot be understated. It's a very good thing for his campaign and a very bad one for Ron DeSantis. And Ron DeSantis' legacy may even be worse than Ted Cruz's, which is a very low bar to clear, especially as someone who came into this with such a strong mandate, such a strong base, such a large amount of money, $100 million from the 2022 midterm elections, and yet you have nothing to show for it. Even recent polls, I think, should terrify the DeSantis campaign. Because 2 new polls were released, one from New Hampshire's Republican primary, and one from the Republican national numbers from Morning Consult, and another one from INI TIPP. DeSantis at 14, DeSantis at 15, DeSantis at 17. Consistent trend here, under 20, sub 20, decreasing. Morning Consult has done a poll for quite some time now, and we can see that the numbers have continuously got worse. The last Morning Consult poll we can see here was quite interesting because it showed Ron DeSantis, actually. Let's see if we can find an earlier one. I think they might take it off the average here, but it's important to look at because it shows a consistent trend away from Ron DeSantis. I don't know if they're going to be able to show us the Morning Consult poll, but it's interesting because the ones in November, Ron DeSantis was at 30. Then you started to see things get better. Every other poll had him at 29, 33, 24, 23, 21, 24, and then it got worse and worse and worse. And now here we are today at 19.7%. Ron DeSantis needs a miracle. Quite frankly, he needs a miracle to win back this primary from Donald Trump because he is being demolished by the former president. And as time goes on, as donors leave, as confidence drops, as betting markets shift away from him, public sentiment will sour, more so than it already has. And his candidacy will go from being one of the shiniest stars, largest chances, best chances for the GOP to win the general election, to amounting to absolutely nothing. It's a scary thought for those who support Ron DeSantis, but increasingly becoming more and more real as the weeks go on. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2024 Republican primary analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.